You're listening to the God Life Culture Podcast, where faith
and what's trending collide. Welcome to the latest episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. This is Eddie.
What's up, everyone? This is Miguel, and we are so excited that you are back for another episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. If this is your first time listening, we want to say welcome to our podcast. We hope that you enjoy our conversations, that you are blessed by our conversations, that you go and check out all of our previous episodes. And if you are a returning listener, we want to say welcome back and thank you for coming and checking out our episodes and listening and being a part of our podcast community. And today we have a cool topic that we're going to kind of dive into. And it's something that honestly, I don't think we don't think about this, I think, in this way, right? So we talk about friendships often. I think, if I were to ask you if you think about your friends or, the people in your life, I think that part we think about, right? And it's kind of like in our minds, either because we communicate with them, we talk with them, we see them often. But now if I were to talk to you or ask you about the types of friends you have in your life, I think that's where the conversation shifts a little bit. And it's something that is not as popular to think about maybe, or we think about it just not like intentionally, like what type of friends do I have, right? And recently there was an article that was published by Relevant that talked about the 5 friends that you really need in your life. And they kind of break down all of these different types of friends that are actually essential and important for you to have in your life. Yeah. So the first one is someone who is older and wiser than you.
Yes. And I think that older doesn't always mean wiser.
Good. Yeah.
So I think that that's a very important thing that it says and wiser, because I mean, at least from my experience, I've always been the younger person in my groups, until fairly recently, where now it's kind of like leveled out. But I knew, like, growing up, I was always like the youngest kid, like in leadership. I was always the youngest kid at a job. I was always the youngest person in a group. And there was always a lot of older people around me and surrounding me, but they weren't always making the smartest decisions. So they weren't always the wisest people. But when you find someone who is older and wiser that you connect with, there is a benefit from that type of relationship. You know, those benefits are experience, wisdom, perspective. Sometimes they should be able to help you like zone out and not be so like focused on whatever is immediately in front of you. Like sometimes you have to look at things holistically and big picture wise. And I think I've been lucky enough to have that at different stages in my life where there were older people around me that I could confide in and like ask questions or bounce ideas off of them and stuff like that. So I think it is beneficial for you to have someone who is more knowledgeable and you see that even with like career stuff, if, you're trying to be a singer, you want someone who's a better singer as you that's teaching you. If you want to be a musician, if you want to be a whatever, you want people that have the experience and the knowledge and all that other stuff that comes with being quote unquote older than you, to give you those tidbits to help you be more successful. And
I think it also, it doesn't always mean they have to just be like, let's say like a few years older than you. I think a lot of times, especially if you are younger, right? I think that it's hard to picture or wrap in your mind the idea of I need older people around me or older friends. But I think as you get older, you realize the importance of that too, right? Yeah. Where I think, you could have a friend that's 5, 6, 7 years older and that's cool. But then what about somebody 20 years older than you? Yeah. What about someone who really has lived life, really has gone through experiences, really has gone through different things where they can definitely through conversation, just help you process things that you're going through or things that you feel, right? So, and then when we talk about having a friend who is older, I think also sometimes it's like, well, what am I going to do with them? Like, what are we going to do? They're so much older or they're so much this, right? Like our interests are different. I think a lot of times it's not necessarily like, again, the friend that you would have that maybe is around your age where you have similar interests and common interests. You go here, you go there. But I think just that friend in life that you could sit and talk to, right? right? So it's not always, again, there's different levels of friendship and kind of, how you interact with each of your friends are differently, right? You do that differently. I think having someone in your life who is, I don't want to say significantly older, but again, just way more experienced than you are is very important. You know what I mean? And, having a few people where, again, they can see what you're doing and maybe comment on it and reminisce when they were that age and kind of share with you maybe what they did and what didn't work and how they overcame that. I think when you have that is also encouraging and kind of lets you know, like, other people have also experienced this, other people have gone through it and have come out on the other side.
Yeah, and I think in order to help you better understand the conversation that we're having, you also have to be able to understand that there are different categories of friendship.
Yeah.
Like I've had this conversation with my wife, and I'm pretty sure we've spoken about it on the pod many times before, where there are certain people that just group everybody together. You are my friend, so the standards and the expectations and what we're supposed to be doing is the same for everybody that holds the title of friend. And I think that in reality, that isn't the most sustainable to do that, where everyone that you attribute the title of friend to, that you're expecting them to always want to go with you to movie night, or that you're expecting them to always be the people you go to for counseling, or like, no, there's different friends that you have for different things that serve different roles and purposes. Are they your friends as in people that you hold dear and that you love and that you have connections with? Absolutely. What kind of friend they are to you is very different. So you can have people that are older than you, that, not to say you can't have fun with people that are older. I've done bowling. I've gone on zip lining with people that are way older than me that were friends. But then there's some friends that's not the vibe. Maybe because of whatever reason, responsibility, stuff like that. They can't just pick up and go to a weekend in Miami.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you have friends that have that flexibility and that ability to do that. So it does vary. So I think it's really good for everyone that's listening to us to kind of like sit back and analyze the people that you consider friends. What type of friends are they to you? Are they the older, wiser ones, or are they one of the other stuff we're about to jump into?
Yeah, and I encourage you that if you don't have that older, wiser friend, not because there aren't people available, but because this is just something you don't think is important, or you rather hang out with people your age, again, it's not that you should surround yourself with just people that are so much older than you all the time, but it is important to have those people.
Yes.
And I think it helps you to also analyze your life and reflect on your life to realize that you don't have it all together either, and that there are areas of improvement that you may need to get someone else's opinion on. And asking someone who is your same age, who probably has the same emotions and feelings and same struggles and same situation, and they're in it, may not be as beneficial as if you ask someone who is older and wiser that could actually talk to you from a different perspective outside of your age demographic and outside of kind of the box, right, that you're in.
But I think that with everything, there's always exceptions. And I think that at times, older and wiser can just mean more experienced. So you may encounter someone who's the exact same age as you, but have more experience in a certain area, which makes them older and wiser, to be able to counsel you and to help you with a specific thing. That could just be like career-wise. That could be in ministry. That can be in whatever, where you have the same age, but they've been doing this so much more longer than you that their experience makes them older and wiser. So sometimes it's not even an age thing. It's just really what that person brings to the friendship.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the second type of friend that they say that you should have, right, is someone who is younger than you. So now, not someone who's older, someone who is younger. And they actually mentioned this psychologist, right? His name is Erik Erikson, and he described this idea of generativity versus stagnation, right? And it talks about this theory of fulfillment that we derive from helping others helps us maintain our own sense of purpose, and that's obviously an element of growth for our lives. So like the more you help other people, that actually grounds you and gives you purpose, which allows you to grow in your life. But now on the other hand, he found that if you don't invest in others, it actually stunts your growth, both your personal potential and the opportunity to influence someone else in your life for the better. So it's like when you are there helping someone, mentoring someone, that brings you fulfillment. When you lack that investment in someone's life, and when you lack that role as a mentor in someone's life, right, it makes you feel like you're not reaching your fullest potential and doesn't allow you to really be impact or motivated to influence other people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it challenges you in ways that are very different than other things in your life. When you are, and it's not even, the mentor role and position can come into effect, but sometimes you just have relationships with people that are younger than you, and it's not you're their mentor, but it's just that you have a relationship with them, and through those relationships, you give advice and you check in with them and you having conversations, and sometimes they may challenge you based on your stance on certain things. They may challenge you on your view and how your perspective and how to address certain things, and I think that's also great as well, because we see this with our parents growing up. Sometimes our parents thought they were right about something because they were older, and they were not right. It really wasn't. They weren't right. But when you have that ability to speak to people that are younger than you and see their perspective, see their point of view, it gives you more dexterity and being able to see things in their perspective as well, which is the give and take. Yes, you feel more fulfilled when you give somebody advice and they take it and you see how it's successful for them. That gives you a sense of joy and a sense of pride. Yes, when you see someone who was struggling in certain areas that were younger than you, and through your guidance and through your prayers and through your advice, you see that they start to get themselves aligned and doing things correctly. Yes, you feel a sense of pride with that as well. But I think it's a give and take where you also need to be connected to people outside of your age demographic that are going through things, that are seeing things, whether it's socially, culturally, that can also benefit you to have your finger on that pulse as well. Yeah.
Like I said, I think it helps you, especially in different areas, whether you serve in ministry, whether you serve as a teacher in a school, whether you're a parent, right? Yeah. Kind of like you say, keeping your finger on what's happened and what's being what's relevant around you. Sometimes you need to kind of be with those individuals who are younger, right? And I think that's just kind of a benefit of having that type of friendship in your life. But I want to elaborate on what you said earlier about the idea of a mentor, right? Not all the time, like you said, do you enter these friendships with the intention of, I'm going to mentor them. I just think a lot of times that's a title that you're given, or a title that maybe someone gives themselves or other people, right? But in essence, just being there for that person, right? Just you observe something, you see something, you have the wisdom, you have the tools to kind of help them navigate through that situation. You talk to them about it, right? This isn't this whole big counseling session, this whole big thing of like, I mentor them, I counsel them, they're my mentees, right? All of this. Sometimes it's just you being present with someone, seeing what they're going through. You have a certain friendship and relationship with them where you're able to open up and talk to them. And that's important, So I think not all the times you have to be like on the hunt where it's like, I need people to mentor and people to encourage. I think naturally, when you have the ability to speak life to people, and when you have the gift to talk to people, God brings these people to you a lot of times, right? And it's like, kind of be open and aware to the people that God brings you, where it's like, wow, this could be someone, that I could potentially, help, or potentially just be there for them. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be in this big, mentor space.
I think that, if that's you, good for you. But I feel that I would feel weird as a younger person where somebody's like just showing up like, I'm going to be your mentor. And every time they introduce me, I'm mentoring. So like, back up. Like, it's not that serious. And I feel like, I feel like it's better when a relationship organically develops in a way where the person confides in you and goes to you for advice and stuff like that. You don't need the title. If it develops into that type of relationship where that person feels like, you know what, you've been with me for so long, you've helped me so long that I feel like you're my mentor, and they give you that title as their and I think that's, I don't know, you may disagree with me, but I think that the mentee needs to give you the title of mentor. You don't be like, I'm going to be your mentor.
Or there needs to be a conversation where it's like the mentee, let's say, is asking, can you mentor me?
Yes.
Can you help me through this?
Yeah,
or the mentor asking, do you want me to help you through this? I will, And again, all those dynamics, like, there are always, and this is where there's always exceptions to things. So regardless of whatever statement we say, you can think of the exception, right? And that, again, is why you need the discernment to just know what people are good for you, what people aren't good for you, who's actually trying to help you, who's not trying to help you, who's trying to benefit from you. That's where you need to have your own personal discernment to know the differences, right, between these people that come into your lives. But I think, again, the idea of, having that older person to talk to, and then having the younger person to talk to and pour into, and all of that is important and does help you, right? Like anyone, you feel a sense of fulfillment. You feel a sense of like, wow, like I was able to use my life experience to help someone else. It allows you to also know that what you went through wasn't for nothing, right? And that it has the ability to impact someone else's life. Yeah. The third type of friendship that they talk about is someone who has a different home culture than you. And they say different home culture than you, and that can mean a lot of different things. That could just mean you were raised differently, you're raised in different cities, different towns, but then that could literally also mean a different home culture. Like this is someone that was in a different country, right? You're close to someone who culturally, right, their background and all of that is just very different than you. What do you think having a friendship from a different home culture, however you want to take that, how does that benefit us? Why is that a necessity? What do you think?
It immensely benefits us because it helps us destroy some of our ignorances. I think that when you are like, I think of, for example, I grew up very Spanish, especially like once my parents started going to church, and then I grew up in church culture. It was very, excuse me, I'm not getting emotional. Not at all. That was weird. It was very super Spanish, conservative, Pentecostal upbringing, home culture. Like that was what I grew up in. And because of that, you develop certain biases and you develop certain worldviews, and you develop certain ways of looking at people and judging people. And, you start to think like, oh, my way is the right way and all this other stuff. And, there's certain people that carry that through adulthood. Yeah. And we see how that affects them negatively. And then there's other people that get kind of lucky and, through relationships, with friendships with other people, you kind of see that there's certain things that is just preference. And preference doesn't always mean it's written in stone as right and wrong. And you start to see culturally how things are different, how other things are done differently, how just because you didn't do that way doesn't mean that when they do it this way, it doesn't honor God. It can still honor God, even though they do it differently, even though they look differently and stuff like that. So I think it helps us be less ignorant when you are well cultured amongst other people and their cultures as well. You learn not to talk offensively. You learn not to say things. You don't know how many scenarios I've been in where we've been having lunch or dinner with people, and it's multicultural people, and then you have that one person who is not cultured say that one thing that is kind of like, whoa, but it's the ignorance of not being in those relationships and having those connections and learning that it's kind of like you are just saying stuff that you shouldn't be saying. So I don't know. I think it when you are someone who has people in your circle or in your friendship group that grew up differently than you, it helps you definitely become more of a well-rounded person. Yeah, it helps you see things from a different perspective as well. And it's not just what you saw, what you grew up with, what you were exposed to. Yeah. It also expands your horizons to also know that there were people in different situations or different upbringings, or even, with people from different cultures and places where they were born and different countries, right? Like you learn through their stories as well, and they bring kind of from their background. And, when you have that friendship, you just kind of can see, right? It's not just the bubble I grew up in, and I think regardless whether you grew up in another country or not, sometimes you could just feel like that's the bubble, this is what it is. And as you grow and develop, and I think, seek friendships with different people, you begin to see that not everyone was brought up in that way. Yeah. Whether, you talk about, even just with religion and Christianity and all of that, not everyone was, raised to be a believer, to be a Christian in that way, right? Yeah. Then you go into like church denominations and the differences in that, right? So I think it's just important, this is going to kind of lead to the next one, to have people that you are close to in your life that, yes, come from different backgrounds, and I think also your sensitivity to that and your interest, right? When you have someone who is your friend and they are from a different place or different country as well, right? I think you have that ability to also teach each other about like traditions and things that growing up, right? Whether it was how Christmas was for you, how, Easter, Thanksgiving, all these different, well, we never did Easter. We never really did Thanksgiving till I came here, right? I think all of that type of conversation is also interesting, right? Yeah. That in your mind, you just think everybody celebrated Christmas, all the time, and Thanksgiving in the same way, It's true. No, what I was going to say was I got a funny memory. we used to have neighbors who they had kids the same age as our kids were. And we're always, kids were always playing together. And then, like, if it was lunchtime and on what my wife made lunch, she would make lunch for the other kids too, because it's kind of like, yeah, here anyways, might as well eat. And my wife tells me the story about this one time she had made, I believe it was like pasta, but it's like Spanish people pasta, so it's different. So the children, their nationality, I believe they're like half Russian, half Ukraine, something like that. So when they had the pasta, the youngest kid was like, "This is really spicy," and my wife was like, "No, that's called seasoning, honey." And after a while, like, his taste buds assimilated. He was like, "Oh, this is really good," and then he wanted more and stuff like that. So I just look at it from the perspective of, even with like your kids, it's very important to culture them in one way or another, because you don't like. That was a disservice that he didn't have seasoning until that age. It's kind of like, boy, you've been missing out. Now his whole life is different. So I think it's just funny that when you do that and when you try, and even at this age, even at an older age, it's good to like try things that are different. I remember I had a friend who took me to eat Moroccan one time. First time ever. I was like, I've never had Moroccan in my life. I'm not a fan of curry, but let's go ahead. Let's try it. And you do different things like that because it just helps you as an adult, as an individual. Why always eat the same things always? Why always do the same things always? Culture yourself. You may not, you don't know. You may find something that you thought you would never enjoy that you actually do.
Yeah. And this next one it could be a tricky one because I think sometimes we don't look at it in this way, but the fourth type of friend that you should have is someone who holds a different worldview, right? And this is a hard one because I think oftentimes the people that have different worldviews than us are the people we tend to clash with at times. You know what I mean? That. So, it's like, well, that's what gets us to argue, right? We have different views in politics, or we have a different worldview when it comes to, I have more of a biblical worldview, they don't, right? So it's like these are the things that cause us to argue or have conflict or clash. And I think that is the very reason why you should have that individual in your life, because it should teach you at least, right, as a believer, as someone who follows God, to be able to enter into these conversations or spaces and not let it turn into an argument or let it turn into this huge clash or conflict between you, right? I think it's extremely important to have people in your life that don't necessarily believe everything that you believe, right? And agree with it. Yeah, and agree with it. And I think that it helps you stay fresh and sharpened up on your responses and on your beliefs, where it's like, why do I actually believe this? Why do I actually believe that that's wrong? Why is this a big thing within culture? Why are we against that within society? And being able to really think about those questions and have solid answers, because you have people in your life who will question it, right? Who will question the next political debate and message you and say something. Oh, did you see that? Did you notice what they, right? And are you going to be ready, right, with that response? Are you going to be able to talk to them, through that? But I think it's important because I think oftentimes it's easier to have people around you that are like the yes men, that will nod their heads at you all the time in agreement. Yes, I agree. True, right? But having that person that will challenge your worldview, or having that person that will challenge you in a nice way where it's just like, well, why do you think that's how it is? Or why do you think it should be done that way? I think it's important to have those friends around you.
Yeah, and I know there's people that have a very strong line of, if you and me don't align in certain beliefs, I don't even want you in my space. There's people that are very like that. They call it a boundary. But I do think that does cause a disservice. Obviously, don't surround yourself around people that are just going to always be provoking you for the sake of provoking you. No, your peace of mind is definitely important, and you shouldn't be surrounding yourself around those. But also don't disqualify people as potential friends because they have a view on certain things that may be a little different than what you think. I think that what you said about the fact that it allows you to be more flexible, it allows you to be on your toes in reference to your stance and why you believe the things that you believe, 100%. Yeah. It allows you to sharpen your ideology on certain things and challenge you, and even provoke you to dig deeper into, why do I really believe that? Because a lot of times, especially when it comes to things on faith in politics, we surround ourselves around people that just tell us this is wrong, or this is right. And we just go with it. Like, yeah, it's wrong because the Bible says it's wrong. Yeah, but specifically, what does the Bible say about that? And how does that reflect today in 2024? How does that thing that was written thousands and thousands of years ago work in 2024? If you're not able to answer that, then they're looking at you like, so you believe something, you don't even know how to apply it in your life at the moment. You wind up looking dumb.
The most horrible feeling, right? To profess that you are something, that you believe in something, be challenged and not be able to give a report and give an answer, that's not good. You know what I mean? So I think having these people in your life helps you with that. It was said, someone once said one time that everyone needs a friend who is an atheist. Right. And, it's something like, obviously when you read it, it's like, whoa. But it's, again, the idea that you need someone in your life, right, that is going to challenge you. Right. And I think that having that friend that is the atheist, the thought process behind it is that this individual will probably have questions and this individual will probably have comments and concerns and things that are on their mind that you as a believer is good to refresh yourself on, why am I a believer? Like, why, how, I believe that Jesus died and rose again on the third day. Well, how exactly did that go down? You know what I mean? And one of the, and when you think about it, there are just some things even biblically that may not seem to fully make sense to you. They say Jesus died, right? And, there are verses in the Bible that will say that, 3 days and 3 nights, the way Jonah was in the whale, that the Son of Man will be, in the tomb and all of that. And it's like, well, when you do the math, that's not how it happened. So how do you explain the 3 days and 3 nights and the 3 days situation, right? Well, then that goes into the whole idiom conversation of language, right? And there are idioms and things that are said that don't necessarily mean the full extent of a day and a night. Well, did you know that that's not how they considered to be a day? They considered the minute the sun rose, that was a new day, right? So you have to know that context. But again, if no one came and asked you that, are you going to think about it? Because we're so conditioned to just say, well, he died and rose on the third day. Well, when they start going in and reading the verses and they see all of that, it's like, well, how many days then was he dead? Because the math is not mathing,
especially when you look at Good Friday versus Easter. It's like, that's 2 days.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's important to have these type of people in your life. And again, it's hard. You know what I mean?
And I think that is also... It goes beyond the spirituality stuff too.
Yeah.
Just in general, I find myself to be a person who people can find annoying when it comes to putting things together because I ask a lot of questions. So June will be like, Miguel will be like, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, why? What about if we do it this way? And not because I don't believe in what he's saying or I don't think that he has a good idea, but sometimes I like to flesh out things a little bit more. And some people find that challenging, the idea of someone not just being like, yes, let's go ahead and do it. Sometimes you need that push. You need that person to kind of make you think about the idea of how you're executing it on a bigger scale, just to see if, it would be better if we switch this and move this around. It would be better if we did that first instead of this, versus just having people around you that are like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last type of friend is someone just next door, right? So this is probably your neighbor. This is your local person at, the barber shop, the store. And I have a few people like this that are I'll go to either the same, store often or barber shop or whatever. And it's kind of you kind of see the same people. You'll see them, let's say, you get a haircut twice a month or once a month, whatever. You kind of see them, or you go to the store once a week and you kind of, bump into them. It's just, again, I think normally people were not like, oh yeah, that's my friend from ShopRite. You know what I mean? But in reality, I think as believers now, this is where things shift, where it's you have once a week about 2.5 minutes with that individual, how can you, as a believer, as a Christian, from this perspective, how could you, engage with them in those 2.5 minutes? How could you, make them have a better day, right? If you see that they're kind of down or discouraged, how could you, somehow, reflect Christ in your conversation and all of that? So I think oftentimes we don't view the people that are just next door, whether even it is a neighbor, right? Where it's you kind of just do the whole wave situation, Is there a moment where you actually can have a conversation with them? right? And again, for people who are naturally introverts, or people who are naturally like, I just have my 6 friends and I stay with them and we've known each other for 32 years, it's hard to get outside of that, you know what I mean? And understand that these people next door may not be the friends that you're calling to go hang out with, or when something goes wrong in your life, you're calling them first. But these are people that you do engage with in your daily life, right? That could use what God has given you. They could use that. And sometimes, again, not on a super deep level, just your simple conversation, right? You don't know what your simple conversation and how is your day going, what that does to someone.
No, absolutely. And as someone who is an introvert at heart, I struggle with this. I struggle with the idea of just doing the extra effort of saying hi to people, even though the neighbor's all the way across the street. Wave that hand. And sometimes it's just like I feel dumb. I think that's what it really comes out to, really. You know, I have these conversations with my wife like every couple of days in reference to the gym. She's like, did you say hi to anybody today? Did you know, have little chit chats and stuff like that? Because she encourages me to be more extroverted in that area. And sometimes I'm like, no, I went, I was out and I was done or whatever. And then sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, today I was talking, and she'd be like, wow, you really spoke to somebody. And it's like, you have to, you know, at the end of the day, because even though I'm introverted and even though I'm a person that, you know, like I'm going to the gym as a mission, I'm going there, I'm going to work out, I'm going to leave, you know, that disposition can sometimes have a negative impact even when you're not trying to have a negative impact. You know, they smile at you and they're always saying hi to you. They're always smiling at you first. You know, when you walk in and they're already there, you need to make the effort to say hi to them first. You know what I mean? Because it just comes off weird. You know, they're not looking at the fact that, oh, he's an introverted. You know, he finds it awkward to have to introduce himself to people, have to say hi to people. So I have to do that thing where it's kind of like, smile. You're not upset. You're just like thinking, but just smile because it comes off that you look real serious for no reason. Because it is important. These are the people that you're in close proximity to, where even when you don't even speak to them every day, you want people to be like, oh, he's really nice. He's really friendly. Not, oh, yeah, he goes to church, but he's such a grumpy old person.
And that's where everything, because it's like, I think, you know, even as a teacher, there are days where you're just tired, right?
Yes.
Like, I very rarely am like super like mad like that and will let that kind of like get in like other spaces of my life. But if I'm just tired or just have things on my mind, I'll be more quiet and more serious. But I'm fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just more of like whatever. So I'll have students walk in, and if I'm more in that serious mode, and there are times where like, yeah, I'm in that serious mode, they immediately drop to that level. Like they're not like they're affected by it, where they're so like they'll come in and they'll be quiet and they'll just kind of sit there and not, especially if they're like the noisy ones, whatever, they'll just kind of, and then sometimes they'll ask, are you okay, Mr. Pagan? Is everything okay? You look a little down, or you look, you know, and it's like, oh guys, I'm sorry, I'm just answering this email and I'm super focused. And you know, sometimes that's what it is, but you realize like, whoa, like my face, right, has that ability in certain spaces to just like change the room like that, you know? Absolutely. So, and I think oftentimes it's not, you know, there are times where you do feel certain things and you are discouraged or down, frustrated, whatever, but a lot of times it's just you in your own head, right? That you're just serious. Like it's not anything super crazy, but making that conscious effort to understand that and know that, you know what, people around you can be affected by that. You know, people around you can, you know, be uncomfortable with that. And again, this isn't that you have to walk around and be fake, right? This isn't you have to walk around and be super positive all the time, but just the idea of recognizing, especially in certain places and spaces where you are being looked at, right? And especially in the classroom setting, it's something that, you know, having that teacher that's just always moody or just always in a mood and you never know what you're going to get, that's not always, you know, the most fun. So I think, again, depending on who you are and what you do, right, that has to be, you have to think about that a lot more. You know,
at the end of the day, I hope this conversation does help you guys just take a step back, analyze your friend group. Are you missing the friend who's a little older than you, a little wiser than you? Are you missing someone that you can bend, that you can help, that's younger than you? Are you missing people that are more cultured? Figure that out. If all your friends grew up the exact same way as you, believe the exact same thing as you, do the exact same thing as you, that's kind of boring. Go ahead and expand that horizon. And, you know, just think of the people around you, the person that you see every morning at Starbucks, the person that you see every morning at Dunkin' Donuts, your neighbor that gets the mail the exact same time that you do, or puts the garbage out the same exact time as you do. Just smile, be happy, be friendly, and just make the effort. Yeah,
and don't be weird about it, because that's the other thing. You know, with Christians, adults, and friendships, it's very weird and awkward. Don't go out like with a teacher that says, I need friends, or will you be my friend? I'm looking for a friend. I'm looking for a mentor, looking for a mentee, right? Like, don't be weird. Just don't be weird. Like, we need to stop being weird, right? Just act natural. You know what I mean?
Organic,
natural and organic. Well, guys, we hope that this conversation has blessed your life. We hope that you, again, are challenged and that you think about the things that we presented today. And if you are not subscribed to either our YouTube channel or wherever you're listening to this podcast, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you subscribe to us there. Check us out, and make sure to engage in whatever we post on our social media, Instagram and Facebook at God Life Culture Podcast. Definitely let us know your thoughts. And we shall be back in just 2 weeks for a brand new episode.
So thank you once again for tuning into the latest episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. That's
God Life Culture.
Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.